Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Bizarre Society, and welcome to the expanse of deep conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shane, aka the original Shane Squatch, and today for you guys, I'm excited to welcome back John Kirwin from Wake Up or Else. If you've tuned in before, you know John's insights are nothing short of electrifying. Today, we'll be diving into some truly mind-bending topics that will challenge your perspective and spark your curiosity, from conspiracy theories to the Mandela effect and the concept of Satan's little season. If you're ready to question reality and explore the unknown, this episode is for you. Let's unravel these mysteries together. But before we get into this fascinating episode, of course, we just have a couple of news and updates. First and foremost, kind of relatively big for, I guess, anybody that listens to Bizarre Inquiries / Bizarre Encounters. We are going to be moving our recording date, which means that our live dates will be changing for Bizarre Inquiries to now Mondays. That being said, it's because of some things as far as not having issues with sitters and stuff, and I'm usually home on Mondays, so it just makes it a little bit easier. So going forward, Bizarre Encounters will be the first Monday of every single month. So the next Bizarre Inquiries will be happening on June 1st at about 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the usual place, the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. And if anybody has any questions, clips, or articles that they would like to submit for that, make sure you guys get it to us before then. But if not, we'll of course pass it along to the next episode, which, as I mentioned, will be happening the first Monday of the month at about 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if anybody would like to pass on those clips, questions, or articles, or possibly be a guest on the show, share their bizarre experiences or encounters, or contact me for any other reason whatsoever, you guys can do that through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. Or you guys could always call or text the Bizarre Reality Media hotline, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if for all professional inquiries, you guys can email me at bizarrerealitymedia@outlook.com. And if you guys happen to miss any of that, it is all available down in that show description, so you guys can find it quick and easy. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome back to the show a man that you guys might recognize from episode 183 and 306. Please welcome back to the show, John Kirwin from Wake Up or Else. How's it going today, man?
Hey, good. I must have said something right if I'm back again, right?
Hey, at a certain point, I feel like, there's so much people doing so much research out there, but you end up doing like a lap after a while because you end up talking to so many people and everybody is constantly pushing their research. So after a while, I kind of feel like you almost like need to do a touch up with guests that you haven't talked to for a while because, one and done is always boring and people are always continuing out the research. So who knows where it could possibly be in the future. So at least once a year, you got to do somewhat of a touch up with people.
Yeah, especially if you're down a lot of rabbit holes. I mean, you and I don't even need notes. We could just riff on what's happening in the world. It's so crazy, right?
Exactly. I mean, honestly, it seems like it's gotten to a point, and I've talked about this on a lot of shows recently, like it's become so chaotic with information that I think we're getting to a point now where they've purposely thrown out so many different rabbit holes with the intention that people are going to follow a bunch of different avenues. And I feel like we've gotten into a point now where it's almost like, rather than trying to control one single narrative, it's more like a confusion perspective of so many different people could be coming at so many different things from so many different angles. So it kind of makes it so that everybody can be talking about the same thing, but end up arguing about the same thing. And like a prime example of this that I constantly am seeing like recently is this whole aliens are demons or demons are aliens debate. And to me, at least, it doesn't necessarily matter the context. Like it clearly matters that we're talking about the same thing. Of course, we want to get more information on this thing. But again, it seems like we've gotten to a point now where it's like everybody is starting to agree that we want to know information on this stuff. So what not a better way to make people side tier away from the information than arguing with each other on the specifics of the information rather than like the information itself. Like, again, it seems like there's just so many different avenues to things that no matter what way you look at something, it could make sense in the right context.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. I'm trying to read between the lines of the Trump show and what we're watching on the world stage, because I don't think it's just the fact that we're more awake now. It really does appear that what we're being shown is being faked, but it's purposely being faked really poorly so that you'll notice, don't you think? Like the Artemis thing was a total joke. The last Trump assassination is so obviously faked. They're not that stupid. So it's like they're doing it on purpose. And you have to figure out why, what's the agenda to do that?
I mean, even a continuation of that, one of the really like weird but positive things that's happening lately is this whole like push towards Christianity in America. And of course, that's like a good thing, but it seems like there's this like other agenda behind it. And it seems like there's always this continuation with like war in the Middle East. And it seems like we've kind of pushed to a point now where most people don't want to just go fight for a banker's war. So again, I think that it's a positive thing that there's a reinsurgence of Christian values in America, of course. But on the flip side of that, I feel like there's a secondary motivation for doing that. And I feel like the secondary motivation could be that they're trying to push people into a holy war because, again, they know people won't fight these banker wars anymore. So it's really unfortunate that it's like, as there's these positive things, you got to also look at the negative side of things that are happening. And even like within that, unfortunately, it seems like with a lot of the new movement, the thing that seems to be becoming very, very popular is these like super massive like evangelical churches. So it's like even within this paradigm of the Christian morals coming back again, which is a positive thing, it seems like it's still got this like corporate feel behind it because the mega churches seem to be the ones that are doing the best right now. So again, it seems like even though it's a positive thing, there's still this like negative counter narrative and reasoning why there seems to be this push behind it.
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily, again, something negative, but I think it's going to be one of those things that they push people into a corner where essentially, again, they push people into a war over something that's like a religious meaning behind it. And of course, you know, again, people aren't going to go and fight because they want to get the oil, they want to get this, they want to get that. But as soon as you get people wrapped up into the religion and then you start throwing false pretenses on why we're going to war, unfortunately, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are pushed into it. And I feel like that's, again, part of this controlled narrative because they have to find clever, sneakier ways to do these pushes because, again, people are waking up and they are becoming aware of these pushes and these things that they do. So it's almost like they're doing these like double counter narrative things where it's like the thing that, oh no, don't do that, that's bad, is exactly what they seem like they're trying to like push you into wanting to do. So it's almost like trying to use reverse psychology on the general masses now. Like it's a totally different narrative that they're trying to spin now.
Right. And I'm fighting that from a content creator perspective because I talk to a lot of listeners and they're checking out. Like the overwhelm is to the point where they just are receding into being in isolation. And then, you know, there's a real struggle for a lot of people between hyper conspiratorialism, where you believe everything is fake, like, you know, the Iran war is totally fake, versus, you know, what's real. So I have this theory, like I know that I'm real. Okay, like if I'm sitting in my living room, I'm a child of God. I believe God is real and I'm real. And if I go out the door and get in my car and I go down to the restaurant, that's real. But whatever I see on the screen can be totally fake, even the war, right? Because you see that movie Wag the Dog where they fake the war. So, but this idea of having to try to discern what's real, because as a content creator, I am producing content about current events, and I have to try to decipher it from a biblical perspective. That's one of the things that I do. And it's getting to the point where pretty much, nothing is real. It's all, everybody's in masks. Everybody's EGI. They're all gender inverted. Most of them are reptilian, probably. And there's just a show going on. And you have the two narratives, the white hat narrative, which is so far-fetched at this point. The only way that it could have any validity is if you have a false light narrative that's, unfolding. Because when Trump first came in, there did seem to be, he was implementing a lot of things that were pro-freedom, pro-prosperity, and he was doing evil stuff, but nothing like now, and he was pretty cogent. Now he's like senile. And back then, what I said is at some point, he's going to break one way or the other, and you'll know for sure. Because there were a lot of people that were on the Trump train when he came on the second term. But at this point, he's gone, full schizo and is just so bizarre. I mean, he took $10 billion from the Federal Reserve and he dumped it into his account for the Board of Peace, and he's just doing things that used to be like a facade of government. And now that's just all gone away. The veneer is gone and they're just raping the country. They're setting up the data centers, the flock cameras, they're implementing the credit system. And it's just a matter of time before we're in full tyranny, it looks like.
See, I'm starting to wonder if we're getting to a point now where it's almost like we're trying to psyop the conspiracy guys, where, of course that's something that's already happening, but if we're getting to a point now where, like me, for example, being one of the conspiracy guys, it's like I sit back and just like watch everything. Like I don't necessarily get emotionally involved in anything anymore. It's like I just see it all as like a show, like all a facade. I just kind of like watch all this stuff happen in front of me and almost kind of like laugh at it, almost like it's a show.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's gotten to the point where like the conspiracy guys are viewing it like that. So what not a better group than the people that would have a voice to try to actually push something to happen than to have that people just completely like check out. And it seems like even within the conspiracy narrative, like the guys that are really talking about stuff, like they're so pushed off to the side that as they're trying to push their content, they're just like mentally checking out. And the guys that are getting pushed and the guys that are the, conspiracy narrative, like alt media, like viewpoint of things, like all these guys are controlled narratives. They're all people that came off of like main networks now, and then they got kicked off and no, I'm an independent podcaster, which of course that just sounds like a controlled narrative all on its own, of course. So it's like, it's gotten to this point now where it's like, you have the voices that want to be heard and they're scaring the people that, are looking for that voice, and the people that actually have something to say don't actually get heard. And they essentially just watch everything like it's a window now, and they don't actually get emotionally involved in it. So it's like they've completely checked out. Like we've gotten to such like a weird point with society that even within podcasts, like you said, like people are so blasted with like the narrative now. It just seems like, of course, like people will always be interested in conspiracies. They'll always be interested in like knowing this type of information, but it seems like they're kind of just, even like I was mentioning, they're kind of just like watching it like a window. Like they're not involved with it like they used to be. Like even within like the podcast spectrum, like it seems like 4 years ago versus now, and maybe it's because of like, the pandemic and everything that was happening and people were a lot more emotionally involved in things, but it seems like it's just been this like constant trickle. But it's almost like I can't blame people, because when you're just bashed with just constant, this crazy thing's happening in our world, this crazy thing's happening in our world for like going on almost 10 years now, it's like, what else do they expect you to do mentally? And I'm sure that, again, this is a process they've known a long time ago. And once they knew they couldn't control the narrative anymore, I'm sure that this has been something that's been in the works that they've been trying to push for a long time.
Yeah. The problem is the part about hyper conspiratorialism where everything's fake. There are a lot of things that are real. Like, I just saw today, Connecticut is now put a bill through to require vaccinations to go to school. All right. So they're trying to bring that whole lockdown thing back. And then taxes are real, right? And those, the Trump show did cut the IRS down dramatically. I was battling with them about something, and I called and I got this recording and said, this agency no longer exists. So that was an example of where the Trump show actually produced some sort of relief for me. in reality, in my little prison planet existence. And you've got the cops now are basically road pirates and tyrants, and they'll, look for any opportunity they can to escalate you when you don't use your blinker, your taillights out.
If and when they're out now. I don't know about your state, but Michigan now is starting to get the drones now that we've been talking about forever, where they're just going to start writing tickets without even being there.
Right. And then, inflation, starting next year, all the cars are supposed to have cameras where the cameras and the AI are going to determine whether you're worthy to drive, like if you're impaired, and then the car will automatically shut itself down and you won't be able to drive it. Then the other thing that's going to be implemented next year is if you're delinquent in your car payment, your car is going to begin to turn things off. It'll have 3 stages. The first stage, it'll be annoying sounds, and then certain features won't work, but you'll get a flashing notice on your dashboard that you owe your late payment.
This is why I was against this electric car push this whole time, is for this exact reason.
Yes. Oh, listen to this. And then if you go past a certain point, it'll escalate and it'll start turning off more critical things. And then eventually, this is what I just heard, it'll actually drive itself back to the car place. It'll drive itself back and it'll be, what do you call that? Repossess itself. So we're like racing towards this bizarro tyranny land. And that's real though. That's my point, is the things that we traffic in are not just fake. Everything isn't fake. So a lot of this stuff does impact our life. I mean, inflation certainly does. And the financial system that's about to flip, the whole system's about to flip. Dollar is going to be replaced with an electronic dollar with the stable coins.
I mean, you already saw step 1, getting rid of the pennies. You got to start somewhere. Start to normalize it in people's minds, and what not a better place to start than with the penny.
Yep. It's incredible time to be alive. And so, a lot of us in the Christian truther community are on to the Satan's little season narrative, where we believe we're in that period of time in Revelation 20 that's after the millennial reign, which is, it's not really preterism because we have a literal interpretation. Preterism kind of makes it all metaphorical, like it's not literal, but we don't believe that. We just believe that, the revelation of Tartaria and all of these Artiquitech, all the incredible structures around the world that are impossible to have been built, like in the late 1800s by guys living in shanties and no power tools, And we've seen guys that are masons and they've like examined these buildings and they're like, these stone carvings were carved to the micron and they're not molds. They're literally carved. We couldn't probably do this today with all of our technology. This is unbelievable architecture. And so you start looking into that whole narrative, and then you see that the things that Jesus said, he was like, there's people standing here that'll still be alive when I return. And the one that really got me is Revelation 1:7, where it says, every eye will see him, even those that pierced him. Well, that means the guys that put him on the cross will still be alive when he returns. So that's like 70 AD. So that means the whole second coming, the Antichrist, the tribulation, and then even the millennial reign has already happened in this narrative. And we're in this little addendum in the Bible in Revelation 20, where it says, after the millennial reign, Satan will be released again for a little while to deceive the nations. And that's the period of time that we believe we're in now.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
So the whole thing rolled out, and that's when they created NASA and the round Earth narrative, and the whole facade of all the people throughout history that occupied positions of power are all EGI, going back to George Washington. And the wives all look like guys. And not only that, but a lot of the old pictures have almost exact duplicates in modernity. People that are movie stars look like those people that served as presidents throughout the centuries. So they're somehow cloning themselves, or they're just fallen angels or vampires or whatever that are just able to go to another body that looks the same. So we're living in some sort of sci-fi horror movie that it's no wonder my wife divorced me. And, after 24 years of marriage, she told me we were in two different worlds. I was like, well, that's true.
Is this where you kind of get into this possible causation of some of the like biblical Mandela effect stuff? Because I know that there's like the Mandela effect concept is so vast that it covers like the Bible, it covers just memes on the internet, it covers logos and everything. So I think this is one of those things that's multifaceted, that it's not strictly like one answer for all of it. Like, I think that there's a portion of it, of course, that is trying to see what type of narratives you can spin and control on the internet, like trying to like delete old logos, make things pop back up, and try to see how fast you can alter information. Like the Fruit of the Loom thing. I think that's definitely one of them, because I know somebody actually found like the patent for the original one that had the cornucopia on it, and that was one that was debated for a while. So I think that one is part of a psychological psyop to be able to change information. But when it starts getting into some of the biblical stuff, like, the Lion and the Lamb is something that we talked about on a previous episode. This is something that goes way beyond the age of PSYOP, that people would have known this information, and then this type of stuff started to change in books that are before this PSYOP type of information would have really started. So, if you do consider the whole idea behind like Satan's Little Season, it seems like that could definitely be be part of the play into some of the narrative on what he's trying to do as far as, manipulating information and trying to make it so that people don't necessarily know which direction to go in if he's in control of, this realm for this time being.
Right. Like, are you asking me why do you think that God is having us go through this period of time?
I was more so asking, like, I know that your main thing that you like to cover a lot is the Mandela effect. So do you believe that the Mandela effects is part of the Satan's Little Season concept?
Yeah. Well, sure. We're in that period of time that will be marked by deception. Revelation 20 doesn't really give us a lot of explanation about this period of time. All we're told is that Satan will be loosed again for a little while to deceive the nations. And then there's a little bit of discussion about the camp of the saints, and then the battle of Gog and Magog, and that's about it. And so we're really kind of in this period of time where there's no eschatological map of what's going to happen. And it's funny because the headlines look like they're orchestrating a fake tribulation, a fake antichrist, because if we're right, that stuff's already happened.
I mean, you already see symbolism starting to pop up. Like there was the whole thing that happened in England with that royal horse, where it was 666 days after the prince had been thrown in jail or had something like that happen to him, and it was soaked with blood, and it was, of course, a white horse, which for anybody that's familiar with Revelation, of course, that's supposed to be like the mark that the Antichrist is coming, is riding on a white horse. So it's like, right. I think you're also seeing symbolism of this stuff in plain sight, and people just aren't picking up on it.
Yeah, no doubt. And the a lot of us have said that, once we started to look at that, everything made much more sense. The events that we see unfolding align a lot better with that eschatology than a futurist one, where we're going to the tribulation and all that. So it's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow, because they've been taught, a futurist view their entire life. But that's what being a truther is. You keep your options open, and you let the facts speak for themselves. And, my first conviction was the Bible passages, and didn't take long to see that it's right there. I mean, I was on a call once, a podcast with these two guys that were trying to prove that it wasn't happening. And I asked them, well, what does this mean? He will come in the clouds, every eye will see him, even those that pierced him. Even those that pierced him means the soldiers that put him on the cross will see him when he comes back. And he had to try to say, well, what it really means is the state of Israel is who put him on the cross. And I said, well, I'm a Bible believer. Okay. I believe the clear testimony of scripture. If it says Jesus wept, right, it doesn't mean it's his struggle for equality or something. It means he was crying. So if the Bible doesn't give me any indication that it's metaphorical, then I go with the plain testimony of the scripture. And if it says the guys that put him on the cross will still be there when he comes back, that's what it means. And that was enough for me right there. And then all the empirical evidence of Tartaria, the melted buildings, the orphan trains, the insane asylums, all of that empirical evidence was just icing on the cake, and it made it. And obviously, they're lying about history. There's 1,000 years missing from the history line for sure. There's tons of evidence that the Dark Ages was actually when the millennial reign happened. So we're not in 2026. We're in 1,126. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I was going to say, actually, too, I know that I had briefly covered the whole concept of Satan's Little Season, some of the evidence behind it on my other show, Bizarre Encounters. My co-host had actually covered it. So I don't know if I've actually fully covered it and some of the evidence on this show. So for anybody that may not be familiar with some of the evidence behind it, if you'd like to kind of state some of the stuff that kind of pushed it over the edge for you, kind of fill in the listeners a little bit.
Oh, sure. I'll, while I'm just talking off the top of my head, because it's not like something that I really study a lot, but I've done about 5 or 6 podcasts. I've had a few guests come on that do study it a lot. The first thing that, really what you find when you go into the text is you find a lot of immediacy scriptures. There's about 15 of them where you find that the Bible, the apostles were talking about he will come quickly. And let me see if I can pull them up here. Give me 1 second. All right, immediacy scriptures. Luke 12:40. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. James, you too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Okay, so that's a very immediacy type of statement. If he says that and then Jesus comes 2,000 years later, then James is a liar. In fact, I've seen debates with guys who were atheists, and one of their points was the disciples were wrong or confused because they obviously thought Jesus was coming back in their lifetime. And it was because of statements like this. 1 Peter 4:7, the end of all things is near. Well, if it's 2,000 years from then, it's not near. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Philippians 4:5. Hebrews 10:37. For in just a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. There's like 20 of these. And so that was the first thing as a Bible believer that we always go to, right? We're like, if this is true, I got to see it in the Word. Well, there it is. And then the 2 most important scriptures are the ones that I mentioned, which are the one that where Jesus is talking to a crowd of people, and he just tells them, there's people standing here today that'll still be alive when I return. That's about a showstopper, man. Right? Let's see if I can find the reference. That's got to be up here. Give me 1 second. All right, here. Behold, this is Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. The other one, okay, Matthew 16:28. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I don't know how else you would interpret that. If I'm talking to a crowd of people, right, and I tell you there's people here that will still be alive that will see the Son of Man, you can try to spin it some way. I mean, I've heard different interpretations, but it's a stretch. The plain testimony of Scripture is that he's telling them that they'll still be alive, and so that's all I needed. All right. So then from there, we started to find evidence, because you think, well, if the millennial reign already happened, then there must be evidence of that. Well, there's tons of evidence. There's architectural evidence where you see the buildings have the year 827, and then there's a one that's obviously been added because it's a different font. It's a different shaped number than the 827. The same thing with coins and other documents and things which have been changed to change history. Probably the biggest evidence for me is the archaeological or the architectural anomalies. So you have these extremely advanced stone masonry buildings all over the world, and a lot of them have been repurposed for offices, or a lot of them are like government buildings. But they're first of all they're massive, and then they're super ornate. And then when you go inside them, they're built like mausoleums, like just incredible pillars and all of this ornate crown moldings and all this stuff inside, which we never see anything like that now. And then when you go in and you look at the history that supposedly is behind these buildings, it's impossible. What the stories are so bizarre, because many of them share this exact same story, where they were built in about a 2-year period by some company using guys that lived in shanties with no power tools. And then there was a fire. They always have this story where there was a fire, and then they were rebuilt where there was an architectural contest where the architects had to bid for it. And so they just used this stupid cookie cutter story for like half of these buildings, and they just put that into the history records. And then you go looking at pictures of these earlier supposedly from the 1800s, and they're fake. There's the skies, white skied out, where they blotted out like the blimps and things that used to fly around because they had free, unlimited energy that they had access to. But the people that are on the ground, if there's any at all, they're fake. So it starts to become obvious that the whole history is fake. And when you start with a biblical basis that the Bible's clearly giving you evidence that Jesus already came, it's not hard to embrace it.
I mean, once the whole idea about time being altered to a lot of people almost kind of sounds ridiculous, but once you actually start looking into how well we've actually documented things through the years, you start to realize that the complete story about, this is exactly how history is, completely falls apart. I mean, one of like the simple arguments is a lot of these historical figures that we talk about, like Genghis Khan, for example, Julius Caesar, there's only like a handful of references to these people throughout documents. But Jesus, for example, there was like hundreds of references, if not thousands of references to this guy. But we look at this thing like it's something folklore and not something like it's existed in history. So if we can't simply agree on the fact, whether or not there's like the religious context to it, that Jesus himself was a true 100% living person, then how are we ever going to be able to start agreeing upon anything else? Because again, simply looking at the documentation, regardless of your belief behind it, like this person clearly existed.
Yeah. But And another thing that really tripped me out was the World's Fairs, and they had these orphan where they sold babies in incubators, and it's clear that they had to repopulate most of the countries, and so they had these orphan trains, and we don't really know where these kids came from. It's kind of sketchy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this where the whole like terminology Cabbage Patch Kids came from? And part of the reason why they created the toys was to try to pull away from like the idea and narrative where people looked that up.
Yeah, it's called Hermoculus.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show.
The Cabbage Kids were based on the idea that you could create humans in a test tube using some sperm and a larva. I forget this. So nasty. It's so disgusting and evil. And then there's a lot of people in the Satan's Little Season community that are really researching it, that look at the passage in Revelation 20 where it talks about the second resurrection, or I'll look it up here in a second. But it talks about 2 resurrections. And so one of the theories is that all of the people that lived before Christ's crucifixion have been resurrected again, the second resurrection, and given an opportunity to live a life and choose Christ, so that no one will have, gotten a raw deal being under the old covenant, or basically since the time of Adam and Eve, I guess. But we don't have any evidence of that. But that would essentially be who all these kids are in the orphan trains, which is our ancestors too. It's just kind of freaky.
See, that's one of those things that I've always wanted to dive into it on the show, but I haven't really had too much of an opportunity of having anybody that's like really like hardcore dived into it. But I know that there's like some pretty solid evidence as far as like these historical postcards where they're not just like drawing postcards, but actual like photo postcards where people can like actually verify like how old it is and actually like see that there is some type of like validity to this. And a lot of people try to like play off the whole idea that, oh, it was just one of those designs that people were into at the time. But again, it just seems like one of those designs that's just like so beyond bizarrety that whether or not it's literal or not, like there had to have been some type of reasoning behind it or some type of like speck of truth to it. So regardless of what you believe that may have came from, I mean, there's still something weird going on, and they're clearly trying to depict it through these pictures in the past.
Is this broadcast audio only, or is it visual also?
It can be both. If you bring anything up as visual, I'll make sure I post a version of the video.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Yep. Yeah, you should have access to it.
Okay, let me do that. And I got those postcards right here.
Oh, perfect.
All right, so here's the first one. You can see the people coming. The couple is coming to buy the babies, but they're in a cabbage patch. So why would they create postcards like that? It's sort of bizarre, huh? And it wasn't just one of them. This whole theme of babies for sale is what's so bizarre.
And again, that sounds like it's such a weird thing to people nowadays, but like not even that far off. During the Great Depression, something that we can all somewhat agree happened, like people were selling their kids then, and that was a regular thing. So like this whole idea about like selling kids back and forth wasn't really a moral dilemma until relatively recently.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I think that it's bizarre that you have all these different depictions of babies growing out of a cabbage patch. Look at them. That's pretty bizarre. I mean, why would you picture them like that it's not just one or two. Look at it. There's tons of them.
Yeah, these are the ones where it starts getting weird, is like these pictures.
It's really weird. And it's like all of them are depicting it like that way, which lends credence to this idea of the Hermocula, where they were just created out of the dirt using the satanic rituals. And here's some pictures of a newspaper article, babies sent to the incubator from all parts of the country. This is the World's Fair where they were selling them. Incubators with living babies, $20.
See, and this kind of goes continuing more into like the narrative of the World's Fair that, you know, a lot of people like to debate on what the structures are actually made out of, how well they are actually built. But again, beyond that, of course, this World Fair idea seems like no matter what way you look at it, it was almost like trying to revamp or rewrite history. And this was almost like this spot where everybody could just say, all right, this is the way history is going to be. This is how everything's going to start. And it almost kind of seems like these are like these perfect kickoffs to almost like a renaissance of society, so to speak, from like the elite perspective.
All right, so this is if this is real, okay, you got all of these people well-dressed walking along the thing, and the big sign says baby incubators with living babies. Once seen, never forgotten. So if that's real, you've got to ask, why would they be selling babies like that?
I mean, even if you don't believe in the cloning process, like where were the babies coming from? Like, again, there's something weird going on here.
Yeah. And then as far as these buildings, well, these were found, because that's the word, the foundling, or they're founded, meant they didn't create them then. That's when they discovered them. So these buildings that looked so ornate. I mean, look at the structures, all the pillars and all the intricate artwork. And then what they told everybody was that they created these buildings just for the World's Fair, and then they tore them down afterwards.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people use the argument that they were like, oh, they just used like wiring and like plaster type material, and they were basically just these like throwaway type buildings and materials.
Right. And then some of them, there was like, I don't know, like 1 million square feet for one of the World's Fairs. All of these buildings were just made of mason. They weren't like that. Look at that. That's what it looked like. So even if that's true, okay, it's even harder to believe if they threw it up using, plaster of Paris. It would be more of a phenomenon if they could have built these things that are safe, right, and structurally sound. So it's a baloney. These buildings were part of the millennial reign, and then they came in, and all of the people that would not get on board with the correct narrative were basically put into insane asylums. There was like hundreds of insane asylums built around that time to put all the normal people away, and that's how they controlled the narrative. And here's pictures of the orphan trains. These are real pictures. Where are all these kids coming from and why? And I mean, there's just no normal explanation for this. It's a completely bizarre part of history that you don't ever learn in school. All of history is fake. Mass relocation of children in the 19th century, relocated from who knows where. And then the mud flood is fascinating because all over the world, you have these buildings which basically start on the second, third floor sometimes. And you have these structures that have half windows at the street level. Now, why would you create a building? Why would you build a building into the ground like that, or have cities underneath the city? I can get a better picture than this.
I mean, talk about a strange perspective to try to throw in on this too. If this stuff was happening around the 1920s or so, World War II was World War I was starting up around that time. Right after that, World War II. Before World War II, we didn't necessarily have as much of like a back and forth conflict with Russia. And then after World War II, seems like when all these like narratives and perspectives started changing, and that's when he started having this like built up aggression towards Russia. And again, I'm not trying to like say that this is necessarily for sure the perspective, but just a different perspective to possibly view some of this stuff. I know that like Fomenko, for example, was one of the people who were working at the Kremlin who started working on like the new chronology, and that whole theory is part of his theory. And the Kremlin started like releasing like pictures of Tartaria. They started releasing these ideas of the mud flood and everything. And it almost kind of makes you wonder if it could be that the reason why there's so much aggression towards this area is because they're actually holding real information on the history of the world, and everybody knows that, and they're getting pissed off as they're actually trying to release information. Or their counter perspective of that is, kind of another weird thing to think about, but all of this information of Tartaria, all this type of stuff could actually be a psyop coming out of Russia, that they're actually trying to manipulate this information to make people question the narrative on everything. Like, this is, again, the layers of things that start getting really, really complicated, is that even within any conspiracy, you can think of either perspective on why they would or would not want to push it. But then there's, again, these other different events and things that kind of back up this perspective. But again, I'm not saying it is how it is, but I often question whether or not our aggression towards Russia is because we're trying to release this information. They're constantly releasing maps and different things on the internet, almost as like a come and test me type of feel to it, like on this controlled narrative idea.
Right. Are they actually fighting us all waking up, or do they have a reason for waking us up? So they're the ones that decide, okay, around 1980, we're going to start leaking out the idea that the earth is flat. We're going to release a few people into the media to start talking about that. And then basically, are we just rats in a maze, or is there some sort of actual battle between good and evil where they're fighting against the truth? And actually, I think that one's true because there's been a number of whistleblowers around the Project Looking Glass project. I did a whole thing on it. And essentially, they have combined a number of different technologies. There were these scrolls that they got from Iraq that gave them the location of these portals. That was the first part of it. And using that technology, and then they used people from the what do they call the long distance seer people? Remote viewers.
Yeah, remote viewers.
They had the remote viewers, and then they had some device. Okay, they combined these three things, and that was Project Looking Glass, and it allowed them to look and see the different possible timelines that were coming, and then they were able to basically orchestrate changes now that would then change the timeline. So they were basically steering the future. Then they added some supercomputers that helped the people that were seeing ask better questions and then they were able to actually control the future. However, at a certain point, they all found that they couldn't see anything past 2012. And in other words, all the timelines collapsed into one timeline, no matter what they did. And what that final timeline was light and truth won. Because the people controlling everything are not good people. They're on the dark side, basically, right? But what they saw at 2012 was all of their timelines, no matter what they did, it all ended up with all of these lies coming out into the open. And then there was a golden age. Now they're trying to orchestrate hell on earth, not a golden age. But the timelines are all collapsing into the golden age. So if that's true, okay, what we're watching right now is the elite's attempt to somehow circumvent that from happening. And the Mandela effect has to be part of that. And I do believe that CERN and the D-Wave computers are an important part of how they actually are doing the Mandela effect from the research that I've done.
Theoretically, from that perspective, would the Mandela effect eventually correct itself if everything continued on to the same timeline? Like if you're looking at it as like a split timeline theory, possibly?
Would it correct itself? What do you mean?
Like a lot of the theory behind Mandela effect that I kind of maybe sit behind is this whole idea that whether it's related from CERN or from whatever is causing these different timelines to split, you have this continuation of all these different timelines, which is why you're having all these different memories of people remembering different things in a different way. So of course, you get into this whole idea within sci-fi about the timeline always wanting to eventually like try to correct itself. So if that is true, that these Mandela effects are almost like glitches or like misremembrances in like the timeline, if we get to this point where we hit the golden age, would it be a point where like theoretically like the Mandela effects would like correct themselves if they are a glitch in reality?
Well, it depends on your worldview. Okay, if you have a biblical worldview like I do, then there isn't two different timelines where people who have a higher vibe are going to go to a 5G timeline, and the slugs are going to go to this tyrannical timeline. I have a biblical worldview. There's only one timeline, and it's what it says in Revelation 20, which doesn't sound good. It's Satan's running around crazy, and it ends in a battle where Jesus just kills them all in like once. Fire comes down from heaven and destroys everybody in the battle of Gog and Magog. That's how it ends. That's curtain comes down on the church age and the world. That's the end of all things. And then Satan is thrown into the pit forever. He doesn't get out this time. So that's my response. Now, other people who don't have a biblical worldview will tell you other things, but none of us really know until we get there.
So this is going to sound like kind of a bizarre question, but if you're getting into the whole idea of Satan's little season, and that would mean that theoretically the Antichrist had already come, and we're like way beyond that time.
Yes.
So is it possible that the whole reason why there's this push about, oh no, the Antichrist is coming, is possibly a diversion tactic because he's already came, there is no Antichrist coming, but if you constantly have people looking for this figure, then it's almost like a distraction so you can do more things in the background. Like, it's almost like they're trying to trick people into thinking that these things are starting to line back up again when they've already happened, so clearly these things now are purposefully lined up.
Yeah, if you're Satan and you're in Satan's little season and you got God letting you run around like a madman, then it would be really devastating to create a fake tribulation and then let it go past the 7 years, because all the Christians would be in it 7 years, and then they would go to 8 years and Jesus never comes. So that all of their faith would be dashed. Like, he could do something like that. But I don't believe that's going to happen. What I believe is we're going to have Project Bluebeam. That's what...
coming full circle to what I was saying in the beginning with the purposefully confusing everybody into all these different perspectives of essentially like the same concept.
Yes. Well, if you're going to fake an Antichrist, okay, then what you'd want to do is you'd want to have a return. The Antichrist would have to come the way Jesus came in his second coming, if you're going to copy him. That's what he does. And so if you look at how did Jesus come, it's Acts chapter 1. It says he comes in the clouds. Okay. Well, that's Project Bluebeam. The RAND Corporation and the UN wrote this document, and this guy got a hold of it somehow. I forget his name. I did a whole podcast on it. And essentially, the Project Bluebeam lays out this unbelievable use of holograms and the voice-to-skull technology, but a really advanced version of it, where it doesn't just beam like this voice into your head. It really interlaces it with your emotions and everything. So it's almost impossible to try to discern that it's not coming from God.
I mean, the voice of God patent was from the early 1900s. So imagine where the technology is now, almost 100 years later.
Right. And then the Russians apparently have this supercomputer that has a catalog of everybody's bio and all of their life information on every person. So what'll happen is,
isn't that just the internet?
well, it's way more than that.
We created ourselves through social media.
But imagine if I had all this data on you, right? And I target you individually from your DNA, and I have the voice to skull technology, and in the sky at the same time is Jesus. This glowing Jesus is in the sky, and he's talking to you, and he's telling you things about your childhood that nobody knows about. And then at the same time, the people have Buddha talking to him over here, and Allah's over here, and Hare Krishna's over here, and then they all merge into one unified God in front of everybody. That's what Project Bluebeam is going to do. And it's going to bring everybody into a one world religion. Well, that's up in the sky. That's how Jesus would come. So that's what I believe is next on the dance card, is Project Bluebeam.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave.
I mean, you already see some tests of this. I mean, Bledsoe's a very controversial character, and he's like a prime example of somebody who could literally be like a test of this. And that could also explain why he has such government interest in him, is because they're actually just trying to see if their experiment is working, so to speak.
Chris Bledsoe, you mean?
Yeah, Chris Bledsoe, yep.
Yeah, I just did a thing on him, but his prediction didn't happen on April 10th or whatever it was. No, it was on Easter. So his prediction failed. I think his experience was valid, but the Sphinx thing didn't pan out. So I'm not really sure what happened. But what the narrative of Project Bluebeam is that they're going to pummel us into the dirt first. So we're going to have, bio attack or massive world war, 5 billion dead, and that's when Project Bluebeam comes after that, not before, according to the Project Bluebeam plan.
Easier to control the narrative with less people, of course. That's their perspective.
Yeah, they're going to pummel us into the dirt first.
I mean, if we don't pummel each other into the dirt, because it almost kind of seems like that's kind of where they've pushed a lot of people nowadays, that, between wars, for example, and even within the U.S., like the whole back and forth with the whole Muslim Christian idea, I wouldn't be surprised if people don't destroy their numbers beforehand. I mean, what not a better way to do it than to have people govern themselves? I mean, they learned that during COVID.
I can understand why people are pulling the covers over their head, man.
That's what I'm saying.
It's so overwhelming. The madness and the fakeness is so in your face that, it's very destabilizing when you see that the government everybody's wearing masks and they're all lying through their teeth and they're all corrupt. And you're just so helpless, you just can't. What can you do? I mean, that's a lot of reasons why people like us do what we do, because we can try to make a difference. I mean, I think I'm making a difference to some degree. I'm doing something to try to push back the darkness in my little circle, right?
I mean, no insult towards wrestlers or anything like that, because don't get me wrong, I love watching some wrestling. I mean, of course we all know that that's fake, but at a certain point, you got to look at the fact that there's a reason why so many different wrestlers end up becoming politicians. It's because they're already used to playing in that world stage where everybody's screaming at them, everybody's mad at them. It's not that far of a transition to go from being a professional wrestler playing a story with people screaming at you to being a politician playing a story with everybody screaming at you.
It's the truth. I never thought of that. How many wrestlers end up in politics?
I actually looked this up yesterday, and currently, apparently holding stuff starting from mayor up, there are currently 15 ex-wrestlers just in the United States that are currently in politics.
That's hilarious. Do you know what I was looking at today? In 2023, India supposedly landed an unmanned lunar module on the moon. Do you remember that?
All I can say is that if India can do it in the nicest way possible, there is no excuse for the U.S. to say that we're trying to get to the moon.
Well, if you look it up, you can find it. It's on YouTube. It's for real, and it's so fake. It's so fake that I don't believe they do it that bad by accident. I think that they're purposely throwing up. I mean, remember the Amazon sent the 4 chicks up to space?
Space, as they say. Didn't they basically just get shot up in the air and then come back down, essentially?
Or even Elon. Elon's rockets look so like Flash Gordon fake from the 60s. They're so fake that I gotta believe they're because if you watch the movies with the $100 million budgets, the stuff looks real. So they're capable of making stuff look real, and they're doing it on purpose.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Elon Musk and Bezos are definitely making movie quality ships. It just looks a little bit more like that funny opening scene from Austin Powers where everybody's talking about the phallus-shaped spaceship rather than it actually being realistic looking.
Yes.
Which kind of goes into a double entendre if you really think about it, because, I mean, maybe it's the most logical shape to try to fly, but if you really get into some of the symbolism of this, it definitely would make sense that if they are trying to make it a mark in an occult way, of course they're going to be using something phallus to, quote, break the glass ceiling, as they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember when I was about 5 years into my conspiracy theory journey, and I hadn't heard about different things yet. I hadn't heard about Satan's Little Season. And I remember thinking, what is the next shoe to drop? And then that came into my radar shortly after that. And I think the next few shoes to drop for the truther community, one of them is going to be the revelation of the reptilian breeding program and the hybrid reptilians that live among us, that many of the people that you see in positions of power are not only gender inverted, but they're not human. And they occupy a large number of positions of power and fame.
How many times has Obama called Michelle Mike, by the way? I just want to throw that one out. For anybody that thinks that's a conspiracy theory, there's at least that I can think of off the top of my head 10 recordings that he accidentally dropped Mike and then switches it to Michelle.
Mm-hmm. And then Candace Owens is going after Macron and his wife. And then I just saw Michael Dell. He's giving away all this money, and his wife looks like, I don't know what. She looks like a guy that just is a robot. She looks like a guy robot made up as a woman. Anyway, the other thing I believe may be revealed as we get close to the end is the idea that there are lands beyond the ice wall. I think that may be something that's revealed. I can't imagine if flat Earth is ever revealed, like in the mainstream, that the Earth is flat, that would bring down all of the systems of this world. So I don't think they can let that out.
I mean, we can't even agree on a simple plane map. I mean, just looking off of what we view as like the typical map, most people don't realize that South America is essentially the same size as North America, but it's portrayed way smaller on the map. Like even just off the standard map for people that don't believe in flat earth theory, any other altered theories, the shape and the size of the continent still can't even get agreed upon on the standard map, let alone, again, a possible continuation of there being more land masses.
Right. No, that's true. And I think, what we're about to do with our outreach is going to change the entire world. If I am funded, as I believe I'm going to be, we have an outreach to bring, it's a public awareness campaign that the Bible is supernaturally changing. Because I did an email to 400,000 pastors. I got 200,000 opens and 100,000 clicks, and none of them texted me or emailed me, not one. So there's a conspiracy cover-up on this Bible change thing because they don't want it to be true. It's really disruptive. But there's going to be people that are going to step into my outreach with big checks, six-figure checks, and we're going to have a free book giveaway. I'm about to release my third book, and all my books are free. And right now, my books are being downloaded. My second book on the Bible changes is being downloaded about 150 books a day. So once I get the third book going, which is going to be Why It's Changing, and then we get back on the podcast, that'll go to 300-400 a day. And then once we have a budget, it'll be thousands a day. And then once I hit a critical mass, and we have, hey, John, here's 3 Bitcoins or whatever, we'll basically, our goal is to reach 1 billion people. And if 1 billion people find out that the Bible's changing, it will impact the entire world. So you can make a difference in this thing. Now, I happen to have a hammer of Thor. I have a narrative or a story that is possible to bring titanic or tectonic change to the church. There's nothing that anybody could possibly say to the entire body of Christ to bring the kind of change that I can say with the fact that the Bible's changing, because I'm correct. It is changing and changing in a big way. And a lot of the church knows it. They're covering it up. We did talk to a couple of youth pastors that were at a conference. There was 120 churches there, and they called all the pastors into this other room. And the leaders got up and said, the Bible's supernaturally changing. We don't want any of you to talk about it. They told them straight up. And these youth pastors went up afterwards and said, what are you talking about? You can't cover this up. And the guy told them, it would be in your best interest if you don't say anything. and he wouldn't come on our live stream because he was afraid for his life. So if you hear about me, Shayn, that I mysteriously died, you'll know why.
Especially depending on what exactly the specifications are. You start looking into those weird things. You'll post a video talking about it, and all of a sudden the next day it's like, oh yeah, I don't know what happened to that guy. He must have been sad for a while.
Oh boy, it was good while it lasted.
That's something scary to think about, though, before we start kind of wrapping stuff up a bit, that even within the context of the church, and again, I know people may take this the wrong way, and I definitely don't mean it that way, but within every group, there, of course, is going to be individuals that are corrupt. And, of course, you never know what the reasoning behind that could possibly be, but, even within the church, if you're trying to look for sanctity within the church, you have to make sure that you're looking within the right places, of course, because, like you were just mentioning, there are people that are trying to cover this type of stuff up, and if they are trying to cover up this type of stuff, I mean, who knows what the motivation could be behind it, of course. And, again, who knows how high up that could possibly go in the chain of command on top of that.
Well, I mean, it's not hard to understand why they'd want to cover it up. It's going to be a shock to their cash flow, because if you start telling everybody the Bible's changing, you're going to have mutinies. You're going to have people leave.
You think that would almost inspire more belief at a certain point? Because if everybody's like, yes, this is what I know, this is what I read my entire life, and then they go, okay, now read it. And then it's changed. Wouldn't that almost bring more validity to people that there is something special and supernatural going on here?
Yeah, that's been our experience, but not if you're in this matrix, the church matrix. If you're in that
of believe in the miracles, believe in everything, but don't actually see it in real life, that weird individual, oh yeah, I believe in everything, but if you tell them, oh, there's an angel, then they're gonna be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Nope.
Well, yeah, that's what my third book is about. It's all about cessationism and the fact that the church has exchanged a real relational, prophetic, visceral type of relationship with this God for this intellectual, miracle-free, scholastic adventure where it's all about the book. And it's kind of like the husband that's too busy to talk to his wife because he's reading the newspaper. And God's jealous of the book. And then they use the book to keep God out of their meetings because God wants to come in and do miracles. And then they're like, well, that's not decently and in order. You got to get the Holy Spirit stuff out of here. And they got all these reasons why, that stuff isn't of God when it absolutely is of God. And actually, I'm having this happen on my live streams. I pray for the sick at the end and we have miracles. I've got about 11 videos now. We just had another lady she's had for 6 years, she's had mast cell syndrome. It's called mast something syndrome, where her face is all red and puffy, her eyes are all red. And we prayed for her. And then the next day she got worse, but then the following day it started to go away. And within a day or two, her face is completely clear. Her hands are clear. We got pictures of her. You can go see that testimony on the Friday video I just did. And we got people being healed of all kinds of physical stuff. I had one girl who has scoliosis, and she has a 20-degree correction, and we have the x-rays to prove it. So that's what the gospel's supposed to be delivering to people. Is you get the salvation, but you also get the here and the now. You get the miracles and the healing and the deliverance, and that's what the church has abandoned. They've given up on that, and they're just all up in their head, and they become like lawyers, and it's just a lot of lifeless stuff where you take a bunch of notes and you go home the same way.
I was going to say, it seems like the nicest way of saying it, a lot of the Jewish belief and viewpoints on things just seem like they're almost become the lawyer of they've lost touch of the spirituality of it because they're so fine-tuned on all these intricate details. And it seems like we've kind of gotten that way with a lot of the different viewpoints of the Christian perspective that, like you just mentioned, people are so caught up with, okay, well, it exactly says this. So if you view it this point way, it views this. People are so caught up in being a lawyer with the text that they're losing focus on the the miracles that are happening, or like what's supposed to be happening behind the text. Like, they're so caught up on the fact of saying like, all right, the book specifies that this is what exactly a miracle is, or exactly that this is what it is. So because this is what the book says, that means that isn't that, because that isn't exactly how the book says it is. And again, it's losing that almost like, I guess you could say, like soul or like human touch to it, where that certain things, like it's losing that natural feel to it, where people are just too caught up on the exact specifications.
I call it the doctrine police. They're just obsessed with accuracy and precision, and they're always debating, this passage and that passage, and it's just a vacuous, lifeless misery, and I want nothing to do with it.
It almost kind of reminds me of I don't know about you, but like I used to be somebody who used to go to comic book conventions regularly back in the day, and it almost kind of feels the same as hearing two comic book guys argue over a comic book character is what it feels like hearing a lot of people talk about the Bible now. Like, that typical conversation of like, oh, Superman, he wouldn't be able to take on this person because he has this and this and this, and that wouldn't work because of this. Like, it's exactly what a lot of people talking about the Bible sound like nowadays. It's comic book nerds arguing over specifications of why a character wouldn't work or why it would work.
Right, which is really pride and arrogance. And in other words, that's what God's coming down. He's like, you've made the Bible into an idol, and what you really are worshiping is your own mastery of the text and your ability to be right, and it's disgusting, okay? And like he went to Nicodemus, or Nicodemus came to him at night, and he was like, Nicodemus was, like, obviously you're from God because nobody can do these miracles. And Jesus was like, man, you need to be born again. He's like, the wind comes where, you don't know where the wind comes from. It comes, but you know it's real because you see the trees. That's what Jesus is telling this religious guy. He's like, Nicodemus, you're all up in your head. You got to come over where it's into the mystical side of the religion, where it's your heart, right? Because he also talked about Mary and Martha. Martha, Martha, you're burdened with many things, but Mary has chosen the better part. So the cessationists and the Bible scholars, I call them the IMF believer, the intellectual miracle-free believer. They look at people like Mary who just love Jesus as being like naive lightweights that are destined to spin off into false doctrine because they're not cracking their Bible every day. But Jesus said, Mary has chosen the better part. Martha's the one that's going to be in trouble, if anybody. So that's really what this third book I've got is all about, is why the Bible's changing, is because God has come down and allowed this judgment to ask everybody this question. Do you know me, or do you just know the book? That's his question. Because hell is full of people that can quote the Bible. But during their life, they were filled with bitterness and resentments, and they didn't humble themselves and walk with God. They just gave him lip service and attended church, and they maybe paid their tithe or whatever. But God is just an interesting character. He just demands our total allegiance. And that's how he rolls, and I've stopped fighting with him. I stopped fighting with God the way he runs his universe. And I hear people all the time, well, what? This doesn't make sense. God had to send himself down to die on a cross. Okay, mister, I got all these arguments. Here's your problem. You're going to have a death moment coming up someday where you're going to take your last breath, and then you're going to be facing eternity, okay? And you're going to go out into eternity without a mediator. That's my problem. Because I got all kinds of questions that are unanswered with this God. All kinds of questions. And I finally one day I was like, look, I can't be an atheist. It's just impossible for me to think that there's no God. And then the Bible has also proven itself. So I believe the message, even though it's kind of convoluted and there's all kinds of stuff wrong with it or whatever, but it's the best offer out there. I'm not going to Buddha or Muhammad or Hare Krishna, or any of the New Age stuff, Ekankar, the ancient science of soul travel, Satanism. None of those things have even a chance of getting my allegiance. So I'm stuck with the God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit and the Bible thing, right? He's the only one offering eternal life, like the way he is. It's free. I mean, it's free, but it costs you everything. That's the way I put it. You can come to God as a hatchet murderer, pedophile, and you can go to heaven. So there's nothing you could do to ever merit heaven. The gift of eternal life is a free offer, full pardon on every sin you've ever committed. However, there are conditions once you take the deal. Because he's not a whoremonger, lying God. He's a holy God, and he expects those who take his offer to then line up and honor him for his gift. That's clear from the text. So if you want the offer, it's free, but it costs you everything.
Ain't that? Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in. I guess I wanted to make sure that we made a point of this too. If anybody wanted to be able to come and get your books, as you mentioned that there are free copies available, where can everybody come and get these books at, by the way?
Yeah, we do a live stream, first of all, every Saturday at 7 p.m. on Wake Up or Else. That's one word, on YouTube. And our website's wakeuporelse.com. We got all kinds of resources for Christian truthers. And then my other website for the outreach is alteredbible.com. And you can download my 2 books for free. They're also available in hard copy on Amazon. The first one is called The Conspiracy Theorist Survival Guide. It's a guidebook for persecuted truthers. And then the second book is called The Supernatural... what is it called? The Mandela Effect, Supernatural Bible Changes and the Doctrine of the Preservation of Scripture. That's a 340-page thesis on the Bible changes. So if you're a Bible person and you think this is ridiculous, I got more theology that the Bible can change than you have that it can't.
And I guess with that too marks a perfect spot for some words of wisdom. So if you're going to bestow any words of wisdom on the listeners today, what might it be?
Well, I would say that the time is coming where all men are going to have to give an account. You know, if the Bible's true, then you have to give an account to this creator, because when you were created in the womb, it wasn't the product of a biological process. You were actually knit together by this God. So he, you know, like a car is manufactured, it doesn't just come into existence. You were manufactured by this God, and then because of that, he seems to have this expectation that he can place a claim on you. And so that's the judgment. And so you die and you go before this God. Well, nobody is ever going to qualify to pass that judgment. The only way that you can pass it is if you connect with Jesus, because he did pass it. He came and lived for you a perfect sinless life, and then was punished in your place. That's the sales pitch of the gospel, basically. And so all you do is you say, all right, Jesus, I accept your gift. Thank you. Come into my life. Forgive me. And I'll walk with you all the days of my life. Now, boom, you get born again in an instant, right? And now when you die and God's up there and you're standing there and he's like, why should I let you into my holy heaven? Now you could just point to the mediator and you're like, I'm with him. And God's like, good answer. And he's like, is his name in the book? Yes, his name is the book. Boom, you go in. That's the only way you get to heaven. Jesus. So you got to get with Jesus.
Truth. And man, I appreciate you making the time to come on as usual. Always a fascinating conversation. Yes. I never know which direction they're going to go, which always adds to the fun of it, of course. And we'll have to make sure that we hit another episode, hopefully less than 100 in, because it seems like we hit one every 100 or so. But it seems like you have a lot of new and fascinating work upcoming and a lot of new stuff that you're working on. So hopefully we'll touch base on that sooner rather than later.
You bet. Me too, Shane. Great to see you again, my friend. Good luck and talk to you soon. Thanks for listening, guys.
Big thank you to everyone out there for catching this week's episodes. Just a reminder, this show wouldn't be possible without listeners like you guys. Podcasts are a labor of love. and I want to make sure this show is able to go on for as long as possible. So if you guys would like to support the show and all the hard work behind it, don't forget to leave a review or rating for the show anywhere that you guys happen to listen to the show. And of course, once I find it, I'll read it on the show and give you guys a shout out. And you guys can also share the show through word of mouth. That is always the best way for podcasts to grow and one of the only ways that they grow. So anything you guys do will definitely help improve the show. And if you guys are in a position to support the show and find value in what I do, please consider donating to the show directly. That is absolutely the best way to support what I do if you guys want to make sure that this show goes on for as long as possible. You guys can do that through PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App. And once I find it, of course, I will give you guys a shout out in the show. And if you guys leave a note, whether it's for your business, whatever you happen to want to say on the show, you guys are more than welcome to leave that note, and I will definitely read it on the show. You guys can also go and check out the Patreon, just one tier over there, with full access for just $2.50 a month. That's cheaper than a can of pop or a bag of chips, and you guys can hopefully support the little guy in the process. And if you guys are interested in seeing what it's all about, you guys can go and check out the 7-day free trial. And if you guys like it, hopefully you guys will stick around. And last but not least, you guys can always go and check out the Bizarre Reality merch store. Spent a lot of time working on a lot of those awesome designs over there, so hopefully you guys will enjoy them. And if you guys want to pick one up for yourself, those t-shirts are just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20, so about average for a t-shirt. And honestly, I'm barely making anything off those t-shirts. I would just love to be able to see you guys wear those and enjoy them. So if you guys do happen to pick up one of those t-shirts, send me a picture of you guys wearing them, and I would love to be able to post it on social media. And if you guys are interested in keeping up with the show, you guys can also go and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook. And you guys could always go and catch live shows and video content on the Bizarre Reality Media, TikTok, YouTube, and Rumble channels. And if you guys need another podcast to get you guys through your work week, don't forget to go and check out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, if you haven't already. If you guys enjoy a lot of the topics we talked about on this show, I definitely think that you guys will enjoy that show. We just go at it at a bit of a different way, meaning that instead of doing a lot of interviews, we go at it with our own research and we kind of bounce back and forth, make some jokes along the way. So if you guys enjoy this show, I definitely think you guys will enjoy that show. And if you guys miss any of that, every single thing that I mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. I'm Dr. D's taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality.